Hi. Well, I thought I'd do a live broadcast today because I keep getting asked so many questions about Reiki training, Reiki classes, and often I get asked really interesting questions that I don't always get to share anywhere else. Someone asks me a question in a class and I'll answer it, and no one else ever gets to hear that reply. So I thought what I'd do is start to post a series of occasional live videos, just asking or answering some of those questions that come up during Reiki classes. And someone asked me a good question the other day that I thought was worth sharing, and they asked me about the importance of lineage in Reiki. Lineage is actually a really central part of the Reiki system. All great spiritual traditions have a lineage, a tradition, a sort of energetic connection to the past, and it's very much a part of the Reiki system as well. I'm often quite surprised and shocked how these days when someone talks to me about Reiki and I ask them what lineage they're from, not only can't they tell me their lineage, they don't actually understand the word lineage, which I find quite a shock, because it is really central to the practice of Reiki. Let me tell you, just the lineage that I teach from, it's Reiki Jinkeido, and my lineage is Mikao Sui, Chujiro Hayashi, Sensei Takuchi, Seiji Takamori, Ranga Premaratna, Gordon and Dorothy Bell, and then me. So that's my lineage. Lineage is not just a list of names. I guess you could say that the names are an easy way of identifying a lineage. That, they mark the lineage, or they define it in some way, but they are not the lineage. The lineage is the set of teachings. It's the wisdom, the accumulated wisdom, and the teachings, the practices that are being passed down from one teacher to another. As I said, it's sort of central to the practice of Reiki. And for me, one of the most important aspects of lineage is the purity of the energy transmission. It's that maintenance of an energy transmission from one generation to another. And I don't think it's a good practice, and there seems to be quite a lot of this happening these days, where one student will do level 1 with one teacher, and then unable to continue with that teacher, they'll just go and do level 2 with another teacher in a different tradition. Now, yes, it works. You can go and you can have that energy empowerment, that attunement process, and continue with your Reiki training. But I get the sense that there's a sort of dilution, or not, maybe corruption is too big a word, but it damages the purity of that energy stream, I think, if you just move from one lineage to another without any care for the purity of that energy transmission. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, before I tell you this story, let me preface this by saying that if any of you don't know, Tantric Tibetan Buddhism all comes from a guy called Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava was the Tantric Buddha, the second Buddha, and essentially Tibetan Buddhism emanated from the teachings of Padmasambhava. Now, the Tantric teachings, the Vajrayana teachings of Padmasambhava, massively influenced the development of modern secular Reiki. So in a sense, you could say that modern secular Reiki owes its origins to essentially the teachings of Padmasambhava 1,000 years ago. Okay, it's part of that transmission. down to the present day. Now, about 20 years ago, I taught a Zen monk Reiki in the UK. He learnt level 1 and level 2. No idea what happened to him soon after his level 2, but I remember clearly teaching him the system, and we became sort of quite good friends at the time. And I remember going to visit him one day, and when I got to his house, he was stood at the door with a cup of tea in his hand, just waiting for me. I was quite surprised, and I said, "How did you know that I was coming?" He said, "I could feel the energy of Padmasambhava walking up the street 20 minutes ago." Now, he was not aware of the link, having only done his first and second degree Reiki training, the link between the energetic transmission from Padmasambhava through highest yoga tantra in Tibet through to the modern secular Reiki system. And yet it was clear to him from his own experiences as a monk over many years that he was very familiar with that energy, the feeling of that energy. He felt the energy of Padmasambhava. There's nothing special about me, I hasten to add. This is something that is core and central to the transmission of this particular lineage, the energy transmission, the purity of this energy transmission. Now, as soon as you start moving from one lineage to another with no care for lineage or the energy transmission, you start to break down the purity of that energy transmission. And I just don't think this is a good thing. You start to actually damage the system of Reiki as a whole. I think it's important to maintain certain key aspects of it, lineage being one of them. It's really critical and central to the practice. I just want to read you a very short piece here. This is a piece written by a guy called Jack Kornfield, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. He wrote a book called A Path with Heart, and Jack Kornfield had this to say in relation to lineage. This is something I read out in all my first degree classes, actually, just to emphasise the importance of this. And Jack Kornfield said, "As we select a teacher, we join a tradition and lineage as well. Lineages are the carriers of ancient wisdom. In every great tradition, the shamans, the healers, the yogis, the wise women of the mystery schools, the great rabbis or desert fathers live within their lineage. Lineage and tradition are the sacred containers for preserving practices and wisdom that have been discovered and accumulated over generations. Lineages are the form through which the light of awakening is passed from one generation to the next. When we choose a teacher, we are drawn into the powerful current of a lineage and partake of its worldview, its visions, its possibilities, and its limitations. Every lineage and tradition has both possibilities and limitations. In the wisest traditions, the higher teachings will guide its members to recognise and transcend the very limitations of the tradition's own form, to discover the sacred that is within themselves beyond all form." So that was what Jack Kornfield had to say on the importance of lineage, and I think that holds true for Reiki. I think if you throw out lineage, well, the question arises, what else have you thrown out? And has anything been added? I think it damages the credibility of the Reiki practice, the lineage, if you no longer hold that as being of any importance and having integrity about it. I think this is quite an important part of the system that should be maintained. And so often I see people moving from one lineage to another lineage. They don't know they're doing this because they don't know what the word lineage means, and they have no concept of what lineage is. And I'm finding more and more that their practice of Reiki in those instances is actually of no significance. Teachings are missing, classes have been shortened, all sorts of strange things are going on in those classes. And I think once you throw out lineage, other things tend to get thrown out as well. And I think that's a shame, because Reiki is a very powerful system. It has a lot of integrity, and it's the results that it can produce are quite astonishing. So for that reason, I think maintaining lineage in the system is actually really quite important. I did have one student, I can't remember whether I taught them, to be honest, but somebody phoned me up inquiring about retraining with me. And I asked, one of the first questions I always ask is, well, what's your lineage? What is the lineage that you previously trained in? Well, initially she didn't understand the question. She didn't know what lineage meant. And when we discussed it a little bit further, she said, yes, my Reiki teacher has a lineage, but I don't. I said, no, this is not how it works. As soon as you receive that empowerment, as soon as you have that attunement, you have absolute entitlement to that lineage yourself. You have ownership of that lineage. It's not something that belongs to your Reiki master and doesn't belong to you. It is something that belongs to you too. So as soon as you take that attunement, that lineage structure is yours too. It comes with it. So you can, at any level, whether it's Reiki 1 or Reiki 2, Reiki 3, you can claim that lineage. And I don't find that very helpful when Reiki masters are making the statement that they have a lineage because they're a Reiki master, but their students don't. This is utter nonsense. It's complete nonsense. It's just a projection of their ego. Their students have the lineage too. It belongs to them. So anyway, I just wanted to discuss that question today because I think it was a valid one that came up in a class the other day, and I'm going to come back with and answer some more questions as they arise shortly. Occasionally I'll be posting videos here. So if you have any questions relating to Reiki, you can send me a message, and if it's an interesting question, I might actually get around to answering it on one of these live broadcasts. So that's all from me for today, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.